So Todd,
Yeah.
what happens when you mix George Burns, disco, classic Beatles songs,
Oh,
and lots of cocaine?
okay. I got this. It's the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie starring the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton.
You got it.
Yeah.
So we're fixing a hole where the rain came in.
A shithole.
In a movie full of nonsense, this might be the most nonsensical scene.
What the hell did we just watch?
I don't even know where to begin with this movie. It's been like at least 35 years or so since I've seen this movie. It's one of those movies that was always on like cable in the 80s. I remember seeing it once.
I tried to watch it about 5 years ago, but I didn't get through it. I just wanted to fall asleep, and I searched for some like random nothing to fall asleep to, and I said, "Oh my God!" Within 20 minutes, I was out.
Yeah. If there was one adjective to describe this movie besides cash grab, it would be lazy. Lazy.
Lazy is perfect.
It might be the most lazy movie I've ever seen.
And we'll get into the directing, because that's a big part of what you're talking about.
Or the non-directing?
Or the non-directing, I should say. I have nonsensical, disjointed, and pointless.
Well, the point is to make money. There is a point.
Well, okay, there is a point. So why are we in this mess? 2 reasons.
Egos and cocaine, for one.
That was part of it, but it's the
2.
success.
Yes.
What was popular at the moment?
Disco was king.
Disco was king. Now, I know that not everyone is a Bee Gees fan, but you have to remember.
Including me.
Including him. But you have to remember what was happening in the end of the 70s, end of 77 into 78. The Bee Gees soundtrack.
Two biggest albums were Frampton Comes Alive and the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
So some guy said, let's get the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton together now.
Robert Stigwood, who produced Saturday Night Fever.
But also George Burns.
But it was hot off of Oh God.
Oh God.
77 was a big year for disco and George Burns.
And Terry Garr.
Why
the hell they got the other actors that they got, I have no fucking idea.
It's a mixture of non-acting and over-the-top miming. Because everybody's miming. Nobody has dialogue.
I think that's the weirdest part of this movie. Whenever you're seeing the actors, like say the Bee Gees.
Actors, in quotes.
The actors, say it's the Bee Gees or Peter Frampton or anybody else, act. They're not verbally acting. They're miming.
They're mouthing lines.
We need a tape of your songs, and we need it now. Stop. And if we like your music, we'll make you superstars, and the money will never stop.
George Burns is doing voiceover, and sometimes he's not doing voiceover. It's very inconsistent. They have. I will admit, I'm not a Bee Gees fan, but they have great voices.
They're talented.
But they have zero charisma.
They're not actors.
No.
And by the way, Peter Frampton's not much of an actor either.
Peter Frampton trying to emote.
No, they just put drops of
they just put some Visine on his lower eye. Stupid me. Was he like some sort of teen idol at this time?
I don't know. Well, no.
With his like frizzy Mia Farrow hair.
That's a good question if he was considered
he's like 5'3", maybe?
Yeah, was he considered a heartthrob
I think he was.
I have no idea.
The 70s were a weird time.
Yeah, they were a weird time.
Would you believe in a love at first sight? Yes, I'm certain that it happens all the time.
While Mustard roamed through the building looking for Strawberry, she and her Heartland friends dashed to the van and captured it.
Before we get into the actual plot,
I don't think there is a plot.
No. Before I get into what they thought the plot was, I thought I would describe what the plot is in reality. Plot in reality is to take the audience from Beatles song to Beatles song with little context, very loosely and poorly matching the story.
If there is a story.
With Lennon and McCartney's lyrics.
Now, in theory, that works, because you know where this was actually done well?
What?
10 years earlier in Yellow Submarine.
Once upon a time, or maybe twice, there was an unearthly paradise called Pepperland.
It's animated,
Okay.
and you actually have the Beatles singing the songs.
All right.
The actual Beatles recordings in that movie. And there's like interesting visuals to like take you along from like, you know, the threadbare plot of that movie.
Do you think there was any intentional thing happening here with that?
I don't know. Like I said, this movie is lazy.
We're gonna
There
get to
there aren't enough Z's in lazy.
we're
to
gonna
describe
get
this.
to that, but let's get back to what we think. I told you what the reality was, but let's get to the actual plot that they intended. We think.
What we think.
You're talking about a band, a history of a band at first, the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Where did that come from? But it makes no sense at all. The significance of the band as they take you through history.
These instruments have the power to make dreams come true. And as long as they remained in Heartland's care, humanity would live happily forever after.
Heartland is basically Pepperland. They've crossed out Pepperland and put Heartland. Everything is good. People are good. Sort of fairy tale land.
Ultimately,
That also exists in the real world somehow.
But-
It's very vague.
but is it specific to the region in America? That region in America where this
It's
is
not.
based?
I don't think they put that much thought into it.
Okay. All right. So basically the plot is they show that band history. They show that band today with Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees.
They're like the next generation of Sgt. Pepper's band.
They're given the honor of forming this new band.
From like we've seen in the montage with the original Sgt. Pepper band, they're already world famous. So why do they need to be signed to a new label?
Well, hang on. This is the new era. So this is the new version being released today of this band. They haven't been part of any legacy that they're now signed. This is like maybe
There is a legacy because we saw them going from the Depression in World War II.
I understand. There was a legacy. You're right. But then there was maybe nothing for a few years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And then they said, it's time again to form a band.
Okay.
It's stupid.
Again, we're putting more thought into it
I know.
than I think anybody else in the production did. They should not do close-ups of the ugly BG.
The ugly BG. The ugly BG being Robin Gibb. Let me walk through the bullets of what I think the plot is, and then we'll talk about the characters and what we think is going on.
The characters.
Right. I know. After this history of this band, the band today, they get signed, they're successful, but they go to LA and they're corrupted.
Classic story.
I want you so bad. It's driving me mad. It's driving me mad.
I have no memory of Donald Pleasance being in this movie at all. He's so coked up in this.
Yeah. There's relationship challenges because of the fame and corruption.
This seems like it could be in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, we are excited, aren't we?
So she's getting mad at her own fantasy.
The people in the bus are they want the door to shut so that they can leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, lady,
Thanks, lady. Now we're late.
And then, for some reason, the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band instruments are stolen by evil people.
By Mean Mr. Mustard.
His name is Mean Mr. Mustard. The plot is then, of course, get the instruments back.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
that becomes the plot for a while, and then they forget about it.
We meet the ambiguously greedy guys, or several of them. They're part of a weird organization of evil or badness. There's Mean Mr. Mustard. There's Steve Martin.
It's like Steve Martin must have been coked out of his mind.
Completely coked out of his
He
mind.
is so bad in this movie.
It's maybe the worst song.
It's the worst rendition of any song I've ever seen.
There's also Alice Cooper. He does the song because...
Really badly, too. That has nothing to do with the visuals.
It makes no sense, by the way, that how these guys are all connected outside of the Beatles songs that you're hearing them sing.
But Dougie came up with a great idea, a giant benefit. Musical artists from all over would come to Heartland for a concert that would save the town.
There's this whole benefit called the benefit of Mr. Kite. By the way, George Burns is Mr. Kite.
We haven't mentioned how bad 90, I don't know how, he's maybe in his 80s. George Burns is so bad in this movie. Laughably bad. I don't want to make fun of an old man.
I'm filling the cracks that ran through the door that kept my mind from wandering where it will go.
The only thing I ever remember of this movie is them fixing a whole scene where George Burns sings that.
And he's
dancing so slowly. He sings it eventually with these two little girls who do not give a fucking shit what they're doing. They have to like slowly then dance with this old man. It's one of the funniest scenes I think I've ever seen in a musical.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight on trampoline.
There's this big party and celebration, and at night, Earth, Wind, and Fire is playing the song...
Got to Get You Into My Life. It's like one of the only good covers of a Beatles song in this movie.
And then Billy Shears, that's Peter Frampton, by the way, Billy Shears' girlfriend, Strawberry Fields, is kidnapped.
By Mean Mr. Mustard.
By Mean Mr. Mustard.
And that sets off the
big
exciting climactic
moment. Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees try to rescue Strawberry Fields. She falls, she dies.
It's really badly staged, that whole scene.
Completely. There's sadness everywhere.
Everyone's wearing black, so you know that they're sad.
Yeah, they're all wearing black, and they sing songs like Golden Slumbers.
Which isn't necessarily a sad song.
Barry Gibb sings Day in Life. And that leads to the big finale.
We haven't mentioned at the top of Pepperland, Heartland. There's a weather vane that keeps turning, and it like tells George Burns, who's the mayor of Heartland.
And the weather vane,
when evil things happen.
So the weather vane turns into...
Billy Preston.
And he sings Get Back.
Get back to where you once belong.
Billy Preston on really bad wires because he flies around. And it's like one of the worst wire shots I've ever seen. Which is the same year as Christopher Reeve's Superman, by the way. You just feel really embarrassed.
I forgot about that.
For Billy Preston in this whole sequence.
I don't feel that bad for him. I think he was there for like everybody else for the money.
I hope he was well paid.
Back to the story, which there isn't much of. Peter Frampton as Billy Shears was trying to kill himself. Billy Preston, the magical weather vane, made him unfall off the building.
But before he did that, he magically cured his depression.
Otherwise...
Or was that just bad acting on Peter Frampton's part?
He was smiling. Otherwise, what would have happened is he would have come back on top of the building using Billy Preston's magic, and they would have said, hey, I was trying to kill myself.
Yeah.
I might as well just start again. And he would have jumped. Billy Preston, the magical weather vane, brings back to life Strawberry Fields.
He also turns everybody back into like clergy for some reason. He turns Mean Mr. Mustard into the Pope.
I had no idea what the fuck was going on in that part.
He turns Lucy in the Sky and Dougie Shears, Billy Shears' brother, into a nun and a priest also, or a cardinal.
But why?
Because they're saying that the Catholic Church is pure and non-corrupt.
You seem way more...
It's a stretch.
How do you know?
I'm guessing. That's all I've got.
You said that very definitively, like you just knew.
I'm just pulling that out of my ass, just like I'm sure they did when they filmed it.
Okay, all right. That's the movie, folks.
I'll bet they were like, where are our costumes for this Get Back scene? All we've got are like priests and cardinal and nun costumes.
Yeah.
All right, I guess everybody turns into those. Action.
Makes no fucking sense. The movie's over at this point, and then they show a bunch of fucking random people singing.
It's like a We Are the World scene with like tons of like late 70s celebrities like Tina Turner, that old lady that talks like this.
For some reason, Wolfman Jack is there. Bowser from from Sha Na Na is singing.
Everyone I think it was popular in 1978 shows up here.
You're right.
And they all sing the reprise of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And it's all really badly choreographed. It's worse than like an elementary school pageant.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I would have to say.
So that is the plot. Now let's talk a little bit about what the hell is going on through that plot. And for one thing, acting-wise, remember, there's no real acting going on.
No.
But you're meeting characters. The characters are based on Beatles songs. So you're meeting people like Billy Shears. You're meeting Billy Shears' girlfriend, Strawberry Fields. You're meeting Mr. Kite. By the way, there's no consistency. There's no continuity in the sense that her name is Strawberry Fields, as we're shown early on. But at the end, when Billy Preston is singing Get Back, he brings her back to life and he says,
"Get back, Loretta. Your mama's waiting for you."
"Get back, Loretta." And he's pointing to this girl who plays Strawberry Fields.
Get back, Loretta.
Nonsensical.
I mean, Strawberry.
Nonsensical.
Totally nonsensical.
Yeah. Just meaningless. Again.
It actually might be the perfect scene of the complete laziness and nonsensicality of this entire production.
It's a good example. But there's plenty of others.
That's true.
You're meeting bad guys like Mean Mr. Mustard.
Dirty old man.
Who I think is the worst actor I've ever seen in a movie.
He's terrible.
I mean, you're talking about somebody that's just like hamming it up nonstop.
I don't know if this is called a musical, but it shouldn't be.
I think it's supposed to be.
It shouldn't.
Because I think a lot of people like this would be like, nothing has to make sense because it's a musical.
Good musicals have actors that have verbal dialogue and then they go into song.
And the songs like describe the characters like a Shakespearean soliloquy.
Yeah. We should say that the main bad guy, Mean Mr. Mustard, has a sidekick. Hale, who plays his sidekick?
Carol Strucken, who we all know from Twin Peaks. He's the giant and later the fireman.
He is also in Star Trek: The Next Generation as
Mr. Holm.
Oh, Mr. Holm is my valet. He doesn't say much.
And he was also, don't forget, in those Addams Family movies, he was Lurch.
I always forget that he was Lurch. Okay. By the way, Strawberry Fields' dad, another Star Trek connection.
Journey to Babel.
The episode Journey to Babel. So basically, at this point, you're just following these bad guys' stories. They each have a song.
The Sgt. Pepper instruments that were stolen by Mean Mr. Mustard somehow ended up with these other villains.
They don't explain.
They don't explain how.
Yeah.
Or why, what they're using them for.
The plot is that the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton have to go try to get the instruments.
Yeah, that's the next like threadbare plot.
Yeah. When you see Alice Cooper, who's part of the bad guy realm, you see these weird, I don't know, Boy Scouts.
They're
Girl
dressed
Scouts.
like Boy Scouts / park rangers for some reason.
They're being
same in the Maxwell Silver Hammer scene too with Steve Martin.
Bang, bang, Maxwell Silver Hammer came down upon his head.
They're Nazi-ish.
They're Nazi-ish, but look more Boy Scoutish than Nazi-ish.
More Boy Scoutish. They're being brainwashed by Alice Cooper.
What is Steve Martin doing to them?
I think he only uses them when he sings a song and he needs dancers. Do you think people ever like tripped out and just watched this movie?
No, I don't think it's visually interesting enough. Mean Mr. Mustard has this evil supercomputer that tells him what to do.
The robots that he has.
He has these like really poorly designed robots I've ever seen.
By the way, they sing a Beatles song. The robots.
They do. Yeah.
This might be the most nonsensical movie I've ever seen. You're following the bad guys. They each get a song, which is terrible. They get their instruments back.
But they forget one instrument. They just completely drop that.
You're right.
That whole
They don't get all the instruments
threadbare
back.
plot.
Yeah. And if you follow along, some of the lyrics, of course, don't match up to the story, the people that are there, and the things that you're seeing.
And of course, Henry the Horse dances the waltz, and so they have him on roller skates.
Not doing a waltz?
Not doing a waltz, and it's like two people in a pantomime horse costume.
It's
so bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna call out maybe two good songs, I would say it's Earth, Wind, and Fire doing "Gotta Get You Into My Life."
That's a legit good cover of that song.
And Aerosmith,
Come Together is good.
Not terrible.
They're horrible in the movie.
Yeah. The Beatles producer for a long time was Sir George Martin.
He produced the music for this.
And you would think, because George Martin, who produced a lot of those Beatles albums, produced this movie, that maybe there'd be some magic there with the Beatles.
Nope.
All the music that was used as the, backdrop to the performances.
Very cut and dry.
Yeah.
Very
bland. The
Yeah.
performances were uninspired.
It cost $13 million to make. In 1978, that was not cheap. For context, Star Wars only cost $11 million.
Okay, that's a really good point. So basically,
this movie cost $2 more million than Star Wars.
So basically, today that would be like what?
Probably like $80 million.
Fixing a hole where the rain gets in.
To be fair, they probably had to license the Beatles songs, so a lot of the money probably went to that.
Yeah.
And
George Martin probably did okay.
For people who don't know the history of the Beatles, their song catalog has been through a total shit show of a shitstorm of ownership.
There's no question that a lot of money went to that. I would also say George Burns probably had a handsome check.
Yeah, Oh God was a hit.
Yeah. The Bee Gees probably made a ton.
It's all filmed in like the backlots of like Universal Studios. Probably, I think I read MGM Studios too. And it looks it. It's all there's nothing visually interesting about any of this movie.
Yeah.
And it's all very lazily directed.
Who is the guy that directed this film?
His name is Michael Shultz. And right before this, he directed a really good movie, a classic from the 70s.
That is good.
Not lazily directed. So I don't know what happened here. He's an African-American director.
So it's not bad.
No.
Could you argue that this is not a typical movie that he would like to direct, that it's a weird musical?
I mean, there's lots of music in Car Wash.
Yeah.
It's not a musical, but I mean...
No, I meant the way that you get performers to act. It was weird that you were getting actors to mime situations rather than actual verbal dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just blocking with like verbal dialogue.
The problem isn't with the blocking, it's just the staging. Like in the scene with Aerosmith, the actors in the background have nothing to do. Right. They basically just wave flags, and it's like, it's so dull and boring. Extras in like the Pepperland scene, they have no clue what they're doing. It's like, and it's obvious.
I really noticed it in the Steve Martin song.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The background dancers, the background
they have no idea what they're doing.
But yeah, very lazily directed, a very disjointed film.
Yeah, the ugly one is the worst actor of the three. What's the ugly one's name again?
Robin Gibb.
Robin, yeah.
I think the biggest struggle I have watching it again, besides the bad miming, non-acting Bee Gees.
I think that's the funniest part of this movie. Is just how lack of charisma they have.
But also consistency in terms of like, okay, you've got George Burns narrating the first maybe quarter of the movie.
And then he's gone.
For another quarter, maybe even another third. Yeah. And then he's back suddenly narrating again.
Well.
Hey! George.
I'm in an old-fashioned rocking chair. I'm back.
So what might be day 2 of his shoot is actually the middle of the movie?
There was one instrument still missing.
I think they hired him to like do this voiceover narration, then they later, after he was done, they added scenes. And they're like, well, I guess that'll be okay.
George Burns was there for maybe 3 days of filming.
Maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
1, maybe 2. All the scenes are in the Heartland Dukes of Hazzard set.
He had Oh God Book 2 waiting for him. Quick, before he dies.
I think people were actually probably thinking that. He might drop dead. We need to get him onto this new project.
He was in his 80s. I will say this about the Bee Gees. Do you think this movie had... Oh, hang on. Do you think the Bee Gees... We know there was a lot of disco backlash in the late... what was it, 79, 80?
79. They were the face of it.
They were the face of it. They were the poster child of, oh my God, stop enough. Enough with the disco. I personally think it was things like the Disco Duck song with Rick Dees.
It just became like too much. Like they did Disco Star Wars.
It became ridiculous and there was a lot of backlash and the Bee Gees got the brunt of it. Did this movie have anything to do with that?
I think so. Taking classic Beatles songs and turning them in disco-fying.
But they didn't disco-fy the Beatles songs.
No, they didn't. They didn't. Huge chunks of this movie where it's disco.
Not much. I'd say for the most part it was pretty just bland. Karaoke. I would describe it as almost karaoke style.
A crowd of people turned away, but I just had to look, having read the book.
He didn't do the falsetto. He did the thing you don't like. Where he goes,
Yeah, that breathy nonsense. Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
there was a skit that Saturday Night Live did with
Oh, with Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon.
I'm Barry Gibb, I will put you in the ground. I'll put you in the ground. I'll put you in the ground, yeah. Put you in the ground, yeah. Use my brother, tell me put you in the ground, yeah.
If you want to watch a good Beatles musical, obviously the choice to watch is that has the Beatles in it. It's a well-directed movie. It's a fun movie.
We're not trying to compare this movie.
Well, you have to because you're talking about Beatles films, Beatles music and film.
All right, fine.
That is the
yes.
gold standard of Beatles and film.
I think I can definitely tell you that those movies are better than this.
Even Help is better than this film.
Intermission. End of intermission.
Do we recommend this film, this bad film, even as it's funny, you should watch it?
So bad it's good. It's too long. It keeps on going and it doesn't know when to end until it finally just decides to end. If this was maybe like an hour and a half,
yeah,
I would say maybe.
It's not much longer than an hour and a half.
It seems like it's 2.5 hours.
It may seem like it's long. I don't think it actually is. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I don't think it is.
It's driving me mad. It's driving me mad.
I don't know. I mean, it's a relic of the 70s. If you're a Bee Gees fan, maybe. But I would think if you're a Bee Gees fan, you would be turned off by then because they're so bad in this movie.
I completely agree. I would say that if you like the Bee Gees, then you should appreciate the fact that the Bee Gees wrote their own songs and did a really good job with them. They don't necessarily have to cover Beatles songs.
What about George Burns fans? Should they watch this?
No.
What about Frampton fans?
No. But if you are a fan of Bowser from Sha Na Na,
skip to the end.
Skip to the end and watch him sing.
You see him for like maybe a second.
Also, Wolfman Jack fans. This movie's maybe fun for a one-time watch of badness.
Oh, well.
I think we should stop exploiting the Beatles and just let it be.
I've got a feeling you might be right.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite, I say we just end this.
A Hard Day's Night.
Michelle.
Help.
Hey Bulldog.
Norwegian Wood.
And Your Bird Can Sing.
Girl.
Hard Day's Night.
Within You Without You.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Penny Lane.
Nowhere Man.
Billy Shears.
Oh, darling.
Hot from